Okay, so let's talk about how to do links, which are kind of the fundamental part of HTML. They're the hyperlink part of HTML, or the hyper in hypertext. We're going to start again with just the basics of our HTML document. You can see I already saved this as links.html. I have that open here in my browser, but no text yet. Okay, so if we want to make a link, let's say we want to link to Google, just to be easy. So we'll say click here to go to Google. Now, of course, if we just type that text and we open it in the browser, you can't click it, it's not clickable. So a link is going to make this clickable text that will actually take you to that page. To do that, you use the A tag, and that stands for anchor. Back in the day, we would refer to these as anchor links, and that's still correct, but it's not common parlance at this point. Anyway, the name of the tag is A. By itself, the A tag doesn't do anything. It has to have the href attribute, and that's a hypertext reference that is basically set equal to the URL that you're going to. So we just learned about HTML and URLs. Let's start by putting in our reference to Google, where we need an absolute URL, the http://google.com. You have to have the http:// on here. If you just put google.com, the browser will look for a local file called google.com, which won't work. So if you're using an absolute URL, if you're pointing to another website, you absolutely, without exception, have to have the http:// at the beginning. This, like the bold or the underline or the italics tag, starts the link, and anything that comes after it will be linkable until you put the /a tag. And remember, we don't put attributes in the end tag, so you don't have an href or anything in here. So that's going to give us a link, and if we come back here and we click to go to google.com, it takes us there. So that's great, and we can hit the back button and come back. Just to show you what will happen if I leave off the HTTP and I click, you can see it's looking on my desktop for a file called google.com, which it can't find. So don't make that mistake. That's a common beginner mistake when you're working with URLs and links. Now, you also can link to local files. So that's a link to Google, but say I want to go back to our tutorial on lists. I do the same thing, href equals, and then I'm going to use a relative URL that just has the name of the file. This file that we're working on, links.html, is saved on my desktop, so is the lists file. And so I can just point to it that way. Again, there are complicated ways to point to directories. You'll see some notes about that if you want to learn more about it. I think the easiest thing to do, and the way I do it with all of my pages, is that I just put them all in the same folder. So if I want to link from one to the other, I just put the name of it. So if I save that, now I haven't done any text formatting, so our text shows up right next to each other. Our Google link is still there, and if I click on this link, the lists tutorial, we can see that page comes back. All that this A tag gives us is that it turns that text into a link. So if I want to space it out, I could put the P tag. We'll make that correct like that to give us a blank line, so we get these on separate lines. So that's the basics of doing links. You just have the A tag with the href attribute. There are lots of other attributes and more complicated ways to do links, but there's one that I want to show you, and that's the target attribute. Target says what window should this link open in. And this was used for frames, which were just a terrible thing that were really common in the late 90s. You still see them on Blackboard and some other websites, and they're just terrible from a usability perspective. You end up with these nested windows, it looks bad, it's ugly, it's hard to use, you can't bookmark pages. So the target was useful for that. There's a big movement away from that. In fact, some browsers don't even support frames anymore. But we still have the target attribute, and it's good because you can set that equal to this special thing, underscore blank. That's a predetermined thing that's part of HTML, this underscore blank. And that basically says to open this link in a new window or a new tab. I don't use tabs, which you'll see anytime we do this. So it'll open it in a new window for me. So target equals underscore blank. And so if I come back here and refresh now, when I click on Google, you can see it opens a new window. Our page is still there in the background. We have a new window with Google. That's useful if you're making a web page or a website and you're linking to a different site. So you have a bunch of your own pages, but you're linking somewhere external. It's a signal that they're leaving your site and going somewhere else if the link opens a new window. And so to do that, you use target equals blank. So there you go. That's the basics of doing links in HTML.